Hello and welcome to episode 9 of NetCLIX and Chill here on Dimension Shift Studios. Today we're going to be talking about a few things, including a few more figures from the Mighty Thor, but mostly focusing on the new rules errata that has come out within the past week. So our last episode was actually covering the rules changes for 2017, and those came out last Monday on, I believe, the 23rd? 23rd?
22nd, 21st.
It was last Monday, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Today's the 28th, so it would have been the 21st.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
True, good math. Since then, they've actually come out with an errata with several things, which I thought was kind of funny because I don't think I've ever seen another game company do this.
They saw that there were some issues. They even said, hey, we made these changes last minute because we thought it would be good for the health of the game, not realizing the negative impact it would have on existing pieces. So we're going to go ahead and just basically do a quick patch and fix those mistakes.
But it's been years since they came out with a major rules rework. And then they realized the week it's released, get a player to read your rules first.
They did that at Gen Con.
Yeah.
But the thing is they released the rules online early so that the players could play test. Like, that's what they're doing. What you're saying is what they did. They just made the mistake of printing all of the rules for the Mighty Thor and putting it in their distribution before they did this. So that's really my biggest critique, is they could have released these rules, I'd say a month. Well, I don't know how long it takes for them to get everything printed and the distribution set up. But they should know that window themselves. They could have released the rules, let us players be the douchebags we are and just rip them apart and say, hey, you suck and this is why. They say, oh, thanks, fix that, and then put it in the Thor.
I think the issue is they released these to be player friendly, and then having an errata like this immediately after is the exact opposite of that, because you're going to have many people buying a starter set, they're going to read through the rules, and they're incorrect. So it's just like, well, crap, that was great.
They're mostly correct. The small changes are to more abstract things, like Toy Soldier not being able to move with his sidestep. How many people have even played Toy Soldier? And why are new players going to have a limited edition piece from over a year ago?
But it's even changes like we were talking about last week, like the movement rules having an impact on vehicles. That was specifically noted as not being the case anymore. So vehicles are not negatively impacted by the carrier capacity rules. Which I actually thought was great, because we were talking about that last week, not making a whole lot of sense, still being okay for the health of the game because vehicles are usually really fast. But, Rule of 3 stopped them from being completely useless. But they did actually note that specifically, that is one of the changes they made, is that you don't have negatives for carrying passengers in vehicle. To
rewind a little bit, the rules changes that we're talking about is Wizkids literally calls it the HeroClix Rules Update. I'm not going to read it word for word to you, but they did put a letter in here. Basically, thank you for the support at Gen Con. Despite the best efforts of many, a few things slipped through that should have been addressed. In the past few days, we found out what the most pressing questions are and what needs to be clarified or adjusted. So that's kind of their way of saying, hey, we screwed up. Sorry. Hope this helps. And to me, the changes that they made fix the rule set, and they shouldn't have to do a whole lot from here on out. And they did say that all future starter sets will have the revised rules, so it'll only be confusing for the Mighty Thor starter and for 2 months, 3 months. They pump these sets out pretty quick, so it wouldn't take too long, I don't think, for them to get the corrected rules out. So they changed how effects carry over when you replace a character with another character. Now this, it's still a little unclear. I don't know if equipment carries over, because it says the only effects that are carried over are action tokens and being given a costed action, so that you can't move, switch, and then move again or something. Now what they forgot to do was they didn't carry over being carried. And they totally were punning it up in the way they wrote it. Before, if I carried a shifting focus character and then I shifted, the rules didn't address that new character counts as being carried, so they could be given a power action even though they've been carried. So they just went ahead and fixed that and said, hey, don't pull that crap. You were carried, get over it. There's a typo on page 26 under range object action. They forgot the word minimum. So you can use, you can throw a heavy object. If you're a character with super strength and a 10 range, you can throw that object 10 spaces. But it has a minimum range of 6. Knockback, they cleaned up so that damage is taken properly, because they put it in a table, so you check for each different thing. Once you hit that item, you don't keep checking. It was causing issues with getting knocked off of elevated. Let's say you're 4 squares from falling off the rim of elevated, so 3 squares from the edge of the elevated. If you took exactly 4 squares knockback, if you check number 1, okay, knockback stopped, and then that resolved the action. Now they put that later down in the list, so if you get knocked off of a building, you do take the damage. So it was just a weird little sequencing thing they had to fix. One that we referenced earlier, the rule of zeros has been errated. They did not realize when they wrote that it would straight up ruin Mysterio, Toy Soldier, and a couple other pieces. Mysterio had a 0 attack, but the Sinister Syndicate team ability. So they would replace their attack value, usually using Kingpin's ability, to get to an 11 attack, and they could incapacitate. Well, with a 0 attack, it was stated if you have a 0 attack, you cannot attack regardless. So you replace it, doesn't matter, your printed attack is a 0, you can't do it. So they took out movement and attack, and so now it only reads if you have a range value of 0, you cannot make a ranged attack. The character with a printed range value of 0 can't make a ranged attack unless an effect replaces their range value with a number or gives them a minimum range value. And a character with a 0 carry capacity can never carry. So those are the two that the rule of 0 still applies. They errated vehicles to not being negatively impacted when they carry. That makes sense. And then a big change that they tried to make is they wanted to have us put action tokens on when we declare that a piece was going to take an action. That became a really big problem for characters like the new Green Arrow Chase, who states if they have 1 action token, they can't make a ranged attack. So if I declare a power action to use Ranged Combat Expert, put the action token on him, well, now I can't make an attack because he has an action token. So it just kind of got messy. So they reverted it to basically you're putting the action token on to state that you're moving in to resolve your actions. So you Ranged Combat Expert, you declare how you're going to modify your attack and damage, you make the attack, you hit or miss, you deal damage, you put the action token on and resolve actions. So that's the end of that action. Which is kind of how it was before, and I think that's just the best way to avoid confusion. So yeah. Oh, and they addressed ID cards. That was the other big one. Because they took out, basically they rewrote the text on ID cards, and because the real name is no longer a game element, people were concerned that the level 7 ID card just stopped working. The Cosmic Spider-Man with the Spider-Man ID card, that wasn't going to work anymore, and a couple others, but those were the 2 big meta ones. What Wizkids said is, for all existing ID cards, play them with the real name. Play that how it was before. No new ID cards will use real name, whatever. It will give you a list of possible named characters that can be used with that ID card. So it'll say like Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, or Cosmic Spider-Man. And that would be the new Spider-Man ID card, because they're all variations of Peter Parker. And they might even put Peter Parker as one of those lists, one of those listed. But they won't have real name and then character name. So yeah, those are the big changes from this that they addressed. And then, Jimmy, do you want to talk about a couple of the powers that we had missed or didn't talk about enough in the last one?
I think that one that we completely missed is Quake, and this actually changes a few of the characters who have already been printed. So basically, Quake works normally as far as being able to hit all adjacent opposing characters for 2 damage, and then, generates knockback. But what we missed is that if you have one opposing character who's adjacent, your printed damage value does not become 2 at a locked value.
A single target Quake deals normal damage, which means you can modify it just how you would. You can take Empower, Perplex, everything.
So it basically becomes almost like a close combat attack with Super Strength, because it can still generate knockback. But the cool part is characters who have like special wording that says they can move and then use Quake, such as certain Hulks that came out in Avengers Defenders and stuff like that. So characters who could do that, they can move their full value with using like, Leap Climb or something, and then they can use Quake. but now instead of being locked at that 2 value, instead of their printed or modified damage value, you can now basically treat it as though it's a close combat attack, as long as you are adjacent to one opposing character.
Now, this does bring a certain starter set Hulk to mind from Mighty Thor, who's 50 points. You can rule of 3 his damage to a 7, have a 12 attack, and a 10 speed with leap climb.
And he has a trait that says he can use a quake after using leap
So,
climb.
you can move 10 spaces with a 12 attack and has 7 damage for 50 points.
That's just nuts. Like, and it generates knockback. So you just run up and you can, if that person doesn't have damage reducer or something, even if they do, even if they block 2 of those and they take 5, the repositioning potential here is crazy. And since you have leap climb, you can also ignore them while you're moving, so you can get behind them, punch them completely out of position, straight into your team.
And you can slap, I don't know, you're only invested 50 points in this Hulk, so you just TK him forward. He's got a 16 space threat range. So
after doing all that, then they have to put him down. So they have to waste a bunch of actions on his damage-reducing high defense values. So that's great.
Yeah. So before we start talking too much about new pieces, though, we do want to talk about hypersonic speed a little bit more.
Yeah, last time we had to cut out a bit of that because we were wrong about a ruling at the moment.
I was wrong. That was me. It was my fault.
We were thinking you could use Blades, Claws, Fangs with hypersonic speed. So our whole hypersonic speed discussion last time had to be snipped. So that's why it was so short.
Let me justify why before you think we're too stupid. I missed the part where Blades, well, I guess I caught it later in the video, but I missed the part where Blades said it was when you deal normal damage from a close attack with the keyword, or it's not phrased exactly like that, but basically you can't use it with things like close combat expert or hypersonic. It has to be used how it was before with like charge, exploit weakness, stuff like that. So I had misread it and thought you could just use it instead of normal damage and just been done with it. It's like, oh, well, that works with hypersonic, that works with moving and attacking at the end of turn, all kinds of stuff. But it has to be a result of a close attack. So unfortunately, you can't Blaze Claws and hypersonic, which would be cool, but no.
But anyway, going back to hypersonic speed as it is now, we covered what it did pretty well. It was just a very short explanation of it. Basically, you can't carry people anymore while you're using hypersonic. That wasn't fixed, was it?
No, you still can't carry with hypersonic. You can't super strength hypersonic.
Well, you can't super strength as in using an object.
If you're holding an object, you can continue to carry it, but you can't use the object in the attack that you're making.
But you can use the new super strength as in generate knockback whenever you hit someone. Right.
A weird thing that I just haven't seen if it's been addressed yet or not. The way it works is you move, make an attack, and then move minus the spaces already moved. Now, you move, attack, and then move. Do you have to break away to move a second time?
Using hypersonic?
Yeah, I think you do, and I think that's why hypersonic's going to be hot garbage, but I've got to do a little bit more homework and see if that's how it works or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because if that's the case, you want a hypersonic to take out, the Carnage tokens, you can't. I was thinking we could talk about a piece that you think, or maybe not a piece, but a category of pieces that got a nice buff from it, and then not super strength hypersonic, characters who got nerfed from the new rules change.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a minute to think about that, and I'll talk about at least what I like so far, because I have to look at pieces I don't like. But a change that I did notice is telekinesis does not have a restriction. I believe the only restriction states that you have to target, if you're targeting a character, it has to be single base character. So now you can telekinesis giants and even single base colossals. So characters that got a nice buff, Champion Pool, he has a 6 speed top dial with sidestep. So he's been really slow, but he's got great stats, great damage potential, everything else is really good. Now with telekinesis, it's reduced to a 6 space movement, but now he can have a threat range of 14 spaces with telekinesis support instead of 8. So giants and even single base colossals got a really nice buff because they are compatible with TK, which I think they did that because TK has had a reduced range as far as how far you can move pieces. Now it actually got buffed because it has a minimum range, So you can target characters that are farther away than you could before. However, you can still only move that character 6 spaces. So it's a side grade, but I like that it helps characters like Odin the Destroyer and Champion Pool. Because they kind of needed it. Because they're solid, great damage, but slow.
It's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
I just wish you could equip those giants.
Yeah, that'd be nice. The only item you can equip now, kind of, would be the Throg Mjolnir. I forget what it's called.
Mjolnir or something like that?
Yeah, Mjolnir. But the Throg rare came with one that makes you tiny, but you can still use an equipment even though you're tiny, but that is the equipment. So if you can make them normal for a turn, they can pick up that and become tiny, but that's like the only equipment you can put on them, and all that does is it gives you like +1 defense at range, and then the Frog Mjolnir has a little special rule that gives you bonuses when you're in water. So if you really want to try, you can equip that, but that's it.
Yeah. That's cool. As far as characters that I think are going to be better in this meta, at least what people will be looking for in a figure now, I think hypersonic speed is definitely going to be less widely used. It still has its place. I think that once, if it's true that you'll get locked down by somebody that you run up to and try to attack, I think that people will be looking for specific power sets for their hypersonic people, such as making sure that they have any range value. That way they don't just have to be right next to them, even if they have like, you know, the ability to shoot them from 2 spaces away, or things that will allow them to hit and still get away, such as super strength, where you can hit them and knock them away, so that you're not tied up in close combat. Things that I think are definitely going to die hard are mind control pieces. And I think that they are going to have an interesting mechanic, but I don't think that in a competitive level people are going to take it seriously. Reason for that is you're going to have a lot of characters with high defense values, damage reducers a lot of the time, and for a character who can't use their powers when they attack, those damage reducers are going to be sticking, and it's going to be a lot harder to be able to take your opponent's tent pole and really take a big swing, unless it's against a support piece or something like that. So if there's anything that I think is going to take a big hit as far as characters with specific types of powers, I would say mind control would be the most apparent.
Can you think of just one character you think will become, like, going from low tier or middle tier up to top tier?
Not specific. Because the thing is, like, characters with charge and super strength or charge and exploit weakness, they're all pretty common.
Yeah.
But hypersonic speed was always a step above.
And now it's not.
Yeah, especially now that you can use objects with charge and you can't use it with hypersonic, it also increases your damage threshold. It makes charge a lot more versatile as a move and attack power for close combat. For that reason, I think that it's going to be a lot more noticeable. People are going to probably be looking at that as a lot better power, just because you have more options.
Yeah. I will say a piece I think came out from the changes just a lot better for it would definitely be the limited edition Doc Ock, because his biggest issue was not being able to outwit powers granted by resources. So you couldn't outwit Jakim's Invincible, you couldn't outwit Brainiac giving Impervious, so they had to deal with those damage reducers, and they couldn't. Now that team has a ton of natural outwit built in. Now they can get around those powers. So I do believe that we will see a lot more of that Kingpin Doc Ock team as a direct result of these rules changes. And I do agree with Jimmy. I think the biggest losers are going to be pieces with hypersonic super strength, who their thing was being the big alpha strike hitter. They're not going to do it as well anymore. Do you have any pieces from the Mighty Thor that you think might have an impact on the meta, or you think might be pretty strong?
Yeah, we were actually talking about the newly revealed Hulk super rare, and this is the Hulk that is
He's a beast.
He's got all the armor and the hammer, which is
beast.
pretty great. He actually has the monster keyword, which
He's a monster.
know I absolutely love. So he has 145 points. He's number 52 of the Mighty Thor, and he is a super rare, just called Hulk. So he has 9 clicks, and he starts out with his first 9 clicks with a speed power, he actually has flight.
From what I've heard, because I don't read a lot of Thor comics, but I heard that Hulk thinks he's flying with the hammer, how Thor does. The hammer's trying to return to Thor, and Hulk just kind of holds on and controls where it's flying to. So that's how that works. So that's why he's got flight, which is kind of cool.
So on these first 4 clicks, Hulk has a special movement power called Smash Through Frost Giants. He has charge. When he uses it, he can use improved movement. He ignores characters and destroys blocking. And after resolutions, he may make a close combat attack against each character that has the giant damage symbol or colossal damage symbol he moved through, regardless of adjacency. Hit characters are dealt 3 penetrating damage instead of normal damage. It says he may make a close combat attack, but it doesn't say anything specifically about opposing characters. So that's just funny. He can hit his own dudes as he runs through them. And then he has a trait, which maybe should have been mentioned at the beginning, but he has Powered by Rage. When Hulk takes damage from an attack, give him a number of rage tokens equal to the damage taken minus 1. Modify Hulk's combat values except range by plus X, where X is the number of rage tokens. At the end of your turn, remove all rage tokens. So, during your opposing player's turn, as you take damage, you gain these rage tokens as long as you're not just taking it one at a time, and then on your turn you got a beefed up Hulk. Yeah. And his combat values are pretty good through the whole dial, so you're always going to see a benefit from that. And then it does go away at the end of the turn, but it would have to. It should also be noted that this Hulk has a range of 3.
With a bunch of Battle Fury.
Yeah, so that's cool. Again, he has 145 points at the beginning. He has a 9 speed, a 12 attack with super strength, an 18 defense with invincible, a 5 damage with Battle Fury, and then he's got the Indomitable symbol and flight. The other ones are just standard.
Yeah.
As he goes down the dial, he keeps his super strength, almost the entire dial. He loses it on the last 2 clicks. And then he's got that special movement power with charge as an option, and then the hitting big characters thing for his first 4 clicks. In the middle of his dial, on clicks 5 and 6, he has sidestep with an 8 speed, a 10 attack, 17 defense with impervious, which he gets on his 4th and 5th clicks, and then he has a 4 damage at that point. After that, he gets into Earthbound neutralized on his last 3 clicks, where he has toughness and close combat expert with a 3 damage. And then on his very last click, he has a 16 defense with regeneration. So, through this, he has a pretty long dial for 145 points from what we've seen. He's definitely, almost wholly a close combat destruction machine with decent values.
One thing I like is without his Powered by Rage trait, he has a 5 damage potential on every single click. And if he's taking damage, he's getting those rage tokens. So he's got 5 to 7, close combat expert hits your roll of 3, so 6 damage. But he can do up to 6 damage on his last couple clicks. Like, this dude's damage potential is awesome.
And he's always just pumping it out. His keywords for teams that you might want to use him on, he has Armor, Asgardian, which is huge in this set. Almost everything's got Asgardian, of course. So you're going to be able to make a lot of theme teams just from the set alone. He's got the Monster keyword, which is great. And then the shield keyword, which is also pretty versatile. No Avengers, so you can't just slap him onto a team with all your other Marvel characters who all have the Avengers theme. But that's him. Hulk, number 52. Looks real solid. Again, the Mighty Thor's just killing it.
Yeah. Now, a couple things to note. One of the changes that they did make is the Odin the Destroyer. There's actually a loophole where he could generate infinite actions. He could attack until he pushed himself to death. Really, I guess crit miss himself and mystics himself to death. He could just attack forever. That's because his special power says, give Odin the Destroyer any 2 actions at no cost. So you could take 1 action to charge, and then 1 action to take that power again, generating 2 more actions, so you charge again, and then you take that again, and just continuously generate 2 actions, 1 for an attack, and then 1 to take the power again. So they not submitted, but they gave us a revision to the rules that states you cannot generate a action for free from a free action, that if it's the same power. Basically they said no, you can't do that. But what the reverse implies is that you can still use the power action, and then once for free, you can take this same action. So you give them the power, you can take charge, and then you declare that you're going to use this power again at no cost, so then you can charge 2 more times. So you can get 3 actions effectively, which I don't know if that was their intent, but they do see that that's a possibility, and they only errated it out of the infinite actions. So that makes them a lot better because the damage depletion modifier is out of the game. We saw someone had commented asking us about that, and that is confirmed. No more damage depletion modifier. They did address this. I forget where I read it, but they did address that that was intentional. They did not want the damage depletion modifier in the game anymore. That's out. The other change, to rewind a little bit, vehicles, they not only do not modify their speed value when carrying, they are also allowed to carry characters with the flight symbol, so that's kind of back to normal. So that's the other changes. Is there anything else you had to cover, Jimmy?
No. Just that I think we're going to be getting the new sets this week. Today's actually Monday when we're filming this, and apparently there's a chance that both the Mighty Thor and Undead sets are going to be available in stores Tuesday, which would be on the 29th of August. So.
And I did see Wizkids mentioned, I think it was in the same rules, where they said, have fun opening your new boosters next week, something along those lines. So we know we're getting it this week. Possibly by the time this video is posted, we'll already have the boosters in hand. So it is right there, and we are going to be doing a video of us opening our case.
Plus the Undead set.
Which will be exciting. We have seen a couple more pieces. The werewolves are going to be in there. There's 2 different werewolf models. But we don't have all the dials yet. We don't have the second chase either. So yeah, could be some good stuff in there. We're looking forward to it. One thing I do want to talk about a little bit is, I had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but in the comprehensive rulebook, on page 15, it addresses game elements that are no longer part of the game. Those are still legal in whatever format they're legal in. So Coriander having teleporter in Modern, that's still legal. And it functions the exact same way that it did before. But they will not be making any more teleporters. So once they rotate out of Modern, they're no longer Modern. You can still play them in your other formats, Golden Age, Silver Age, whatever, but you cannot play them in Modern once they're out. But while they're in whatever format they're legal in, you just play them how you did before. You're just not going to get as many clear rules answers from the Wizkids team. So they did address that. It's on page 15 and 16 of the comprehensive rulebook.
So one other thing that we had talked about before that we haven't really been able to do yet due to lack of time is we were going to start doing gameplay videos on here as well, because we figure if you're interested in watching HeroClix news, you're probably interested in watching HeroClix games. So as we'd said before, we're going to be trying to do a Meta Monday series that shows the figures and teams that you would normally see in competitive play versus each other, like Jakeem.
Yeah, it's really hard to see, but there's Jakeem.
And then the other series we're going to do is the Theme Team Thursdays, which is the more casual stuff and doing theme teams only. So I actually have my theme prepared for this Thursday, and we don't know if it'll be this Thursday it would be released, because given time for editing and actually playing the game, it may be next Thursday, and then, you know, possibly next Monday that those series begin. But my team is a 600-point Justice League International theme team.
And my team was going to be Sinister Syndicate, but that's too cheesy, that's too strong. Play that on Menda Monday, whatever else you said. So I'm just going to wait until we have the Mighty Thor, and I'm going to build an Asgardian theme team, and you're going to deal with it.
That makes sense. But Sinister Syndicate is a theme team that's played competitively.
If I use Kingpin and 2 Doc Ox, but I literally have an entire box of Sinister Syndicate. Like, sure, I'll put the Kingpin on that team. That's 50 points out of 600. Like, he's not going to make or break that team. Well, I mean,
True.
He actually,
well, I figured
he
you
totally
were gonna,
does, but
he is really good. For that theme, he is like super
he's
good.
amazing. I was going to use him in 1 Doc Ock, but I haven't gotten to play with my Hydro Man yet. Like, I pulled him, and he's amazing, and I haven't gotten to play with him yet.
Well, I just figured it'd be dull. You have we've done coverage of that team specifically.
But never Hydro Man.
True.
The water is wet, Jimmy, and he wants to play in the water.
I don't know what any of that sentence meant.
Sorry. I had flashbacks to when I was a plumber.
Okay.
Water is wet. It's the only rule you need to know when you're a plumber.
Well, is that it?
I feel
Is
like
that all we got?
that's short and not as satisfying as I'm used to.
That's what she said. You walked into that on purpose. Well, I guess that's it then. So sorry that this episode is short. Didn't want to disappoint any of you. But
It's pretty short. Like, that's bad.
yeah.
Sorry. Oh well. Hopefully you did make it this far this time because it's like half as long as normal. So if you didn't, I'm starting to question why you're even watching these videos.
Yep.
And if you did, I appreciate it.
And thank you very much for watching yet another episode of NetCLIX and Chill. Tune in next time for episode 10, and possibly during the week through this week and the next for some gameplay videos as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in seeing any pieces specifically in those, especially competitive ones, I've got at least 90% of meta figures. So if you want to see it, let us know. We'll get it on the table.
Yep. Well, thanks again for watching, and tune in next time. Have a great day. Goodbye.
See ya.